All right, we are back with part 2 of fascinating deck building decisions made by MHA top cutters. And I went in order of Swiss, so I have the people who finished top 8 at the end of Swiss rounds. Remember, this is not how they finished in the Ultimate RLE. I meant to do this yesterday, but I got caught up playing the Spike Advanced deck lists that were submitted for my competition, and they were a ton of fun. Got 28 submissions in the end, and that video is coming tomorrow, with the winner being announced. So at number 8, we had Ben Clapperton on Good Mirio, and he was running new training method at a 4 of, and he was not running any of the 3-diff foundations that we typically see on Mirio, raiding the villain's hideout and pull-no punches. Here is the list, and one thing interesting about this list is it's the exact same list as Luke Quincy's list that he used to top cut the webcam RLE, and there's a good reason for that. Ben actually has just come back to the game and never played in the My Hero format of UVS, or I suppose, back in the day UFS instead of UVS. And so he was actually handed this deck that morning and made top cuts with it. So a huge congratulations to Ben and welcome back to the community. Definitely takes some serious skills to be handed a deck and just immediately top. And this is a great deck to be handed back, to come back into the game, because it's a very forgiving deck, and it can be very aggressive and win early, or it can use new training methods, Specialist of Sound, and Nice Try to play some solid defense, and also be a mid-range deck. And I just really like this new training method with Nice Try, build down Nice Try, respond Nice Try, ready it, and then you basically got to build a ready foundation with new training method. Number 7, we have Liam Chauner on Fire Rappa. And then also number 3, we had Nathan James on Fire Rappa. And I'm putting them side by side here because they had almost the exact same list. So I have to assume that they talked to each other and put this list together basically as a team. There were some differences, like in Liam's list, he's playing Kirishima's Assistants, and he's playing a lot of one-ofs like Endanger, Hot-Blooded, and Haymaker, which Nathan's list was not running. Nathan's list was a little more concise, but they were both very, very similar. They both have this core rapid punches, bullet punches, blue flame palm strike with 3 prominence burn and 2 calorie counter. And then in Nathan's list, he was running 3 calorie counter, but pretty much the same list. It was very, very cool to see prominence burn and Rappa. Just even though this isn't a Fury heavy build, right? The only 2 attacks that are Fury are rapid punches and calorie counter. I do not believe that bullet punches is a Fury. I'm bringing out my phone because I'm going to look this up right now. Let's see, bullet. Yeah, it's not a Fury. So even though we're not playing a ton of Furies, we are still playing Prominence Burn. It is still a 7 damage move, and sometimes you'll be able to get rid of a rapid punches or a calorie counter in the process. And Rappa really doesn't care that it's 6 difficulty. Play it as your second attack, check a 5, blow up a single committed foundation, and you passed it. So very, very cool to see that. I also like seeing maximum hardening in both of these lists at a 1 of. Form, give everything plus 2 damage. And then we are also running Forcing Surrender, where we can flip Forcing Surrender and discard the maximum hardening. So play it, give everything 2 damage, flip Forcing Surrender, get it out of your card pool, and now it's not clogging anything for the future attacks. And you've solved the number 1 issue of Rappa, which is giving everything damage, because you can play any number of attacks that you draw in your hand, even on turn 2, which is, of course, when you kill people, because people just don't have the blocking power to block more than 3 attacks, no matter what, on turn 2. We're also playing, I like this addition of Kirishima's Assistants to stop cards like Faith Shield. Oh, and the Forcing Surrender could also be used on like bullet punches. If you echo it and then it's face down in your card pool, then you can Forcing Surrender and get bullet punches out of there. Very cool. We don't see the 4X Hardened Barrage and the Prehensile Tail like the Fire Rappa that topped at Gen Con. So we're not seeing that kind of Rappa loop in this list. But very, very neat list. And Fire Rappa seems like he is here to stay. Number 6, we had Ben Campsahl on Good Deku 4. And he was not running any copies of New Training Method, which you might think would be like a staple to go and pick up a foundation and then build, but he's running 3 copies of Determined, which says commit if you try to block this attack with an attacker foundation that shares 2 symbols with your starting character. Its block modifier becomes 0. Now this is very, very important in Ben's list because Ben is running 4x any means necessary, which shares the life and good symbol with Deku 4, and has like I think it's a 4 or 5 mid block. So getting to commit and make this a 0 means you can run this in Deku 4 comfortably, because while it's great on offense to discard and then respond and draw a card, when you draw it on defense with Deku 4, it doesn't feel as good, right? Because you only see 5 cards at the beginning with Deku 4, and then when you pass back, you draw 3 more. And if you draw on any means necessary, now you're just stuck with a 5 mid block. And Determined makes that a 0 mid block. So very, very neat. Also, Determined has a extremely powerful Deadlock enhance. Your Fury or Punch attack is +3 damage. That is repeatable. That's going to be on everything. I do like seeing Wind Up Punch here because then it gets stun too. And of course, now you're adding it in with the stun of Rewind Throttle and the stun of Back Alley Haymaker. It's a pretty stun heavy lineup. And you've got Practical Studies to give everything a speed until they lose health. And Pull No Punches for the Deadlock or to get momentum for Pull No Punches to get momentum for Deku 4 for another 4 damage, or to get Deadlock off and further contribute to this stun lineup that we have going here. Very, very neat. At number 5, we have Gavin Walker on Earth Overhaul. And Overhaul gets to take advantage of foundations that don't do much in your stage, but have effects either when you play them or effects when you block with them, like Faith Shield and Surprise Interception. So this Overhaul list is only running Faith Shield in the sideboard. It is not in the main board. And instead we're running Surprise Interception, which has some benefits over Faith Shield. It's going to be, it's going to check a 5 instead of a 4. It's a 1 mid block. And then when you block with it, you can respond, commit a foundation, and that card can't go to your rival's momentum that turn. And it doesn't feel bad building this in Overhaul because it'll just be the first thing that you flip to give the +2 damage. And then now you have a face down 1 mid block in your stage that you can block with later. So there's really no downsides to this card in this list. I also like seeing a few reconstructions to build attacks down that we can then pick up with our Hardened Jab or with just Overhaul himself. And we have a few, let me see, there was something else I wanted to point out, but I forgot it. The attack lineup is about what you would expect from Earth Overhaul. We're playing quite a bit. We've got our Stun Hate, we've got our Throw Hate. We're building this face down. Hardened Frenzy is just amazing. It's always going to be 5 high 5. If you completely block it, I'm going to build it down. Then I'm going to play a jab and I'm going to pick it right back up. A lot of these attacks are pretty slow, and Overhaul's not adding speed, but we do have things like Snack Time and Talented Baker to make up for that. At number 4, we have Luke on Life Overhaul, and of course Luke ended up winning the entire event, and he was not running any Tongue Whip. So in Andrew's Gen Con winning list, he was running 4x Tongue Whip, and in Luke's list, he has completely replaced Tongue Whip with Setup Strike. Basically, they both have a very, very similar purpose, and that is speed, because Overhaul's not adding speed. Tongue Whip's going to give everything 1 speed. Setup Strike can get up to 6 speed itself, and then 3 speed on the next attack. So if you add all that up, that's 9 speed total plus 5, that's 14. 14 divided by 4, 4, 8, 12, I guess like 3.5. That's a solid number of stats per difficulty. But Setup Strike seems like it's largely been forgotten lately, and so it's nice to see it come back. And then, of course, Setup Strike also works better with repeated 100% smash to ready your stage. And then instead of running the card, what is it? The Aoyama attack, the mid breaker 2 that unflips too. I can't remember the name of it right now. And Cannon Blast, Luke is running 2 Monstrous Fusion, which I think is super cool. I just love this card, and I hope it doesn't see less play with Maximum Overhaul coming in, because it feels like the perfect Overhaul card. You can play it as your string ender. It's going to be 8 speed, 6 damage with powerful 5. If you have any momentum to speak of, this is basically going to kill your rival. Very, very neat. Also, we have practical studies down here to add further speed, and it's got an amazing deadlock enhance, which Overhaul wants deadlock enhances. And we opted to not run heroic assistants like Andrew's list, and instead we are running Ruku agency trainees. And this we can primarily get around breaker, right? So if we use our overhaul enhance and then someone, or I guess then we lose our overhaul enhance still. But you can use this to get around breaker or just build in a foundation, and then it really feels nice with repeated because you can build in a foundation and then use repeated and just ready agency trainees right back up. And then instead of rescue completed, we're opting for excited for blood and carbo loading, a little more aggressive. And then at let's see. Oh, here it is. Yeah, we have all the Mirio hate in the sideboard, right? Evade and copy, Faith Shield, Instant Shining Flash, Naval Laser Beam. At number 2, we have Thomas on Air Giro. And Thomas actually topped the Season 1 UK RLE with Air Giro. And so let's look at how his list evolved. One key way is that he is no longer running Seizing the Advantage, and he's now running the Big 3 and Observant Student. Imagine Observant Student. Well, let's look at the list first before I jump into it. So here's the list that Thomas used to top this RLE, and then here's the list that he used last time, and there are a ton of changes, which is pretty surprising. One, the list in Season 1 was using instant explosive release, and so we're only running 1 double jab pummel, and then we're also running 0 gravity lift because we have to ensure that our first attack deals damage. And now we've gone totally away from instant explosive release, and so we are 4xing double jab pummel now. And of course, we've taken out Seizing the Advantage, and we have added in things like Nice Try, Big 3, and Observant Student. Observant Student, we can look at the top card of our deck, and now we have more ways to draw that card with the Big 3 and Destined, to where if it's an attack, we can just take it straight back to our hand. Or since we're running 2 checks, it's nice just to make sure it's not a 2 check. And in a meta that seems to be going a little longer than previous metas in terms of game state, it's nice to have a very, very powerful deadlock enhance. And coming in at number 1, we have Grant Padley on Evil Overhaul. And he is running 2 copies of Loving Father, and he is not running any of Brute Strength, which I feel like has been an Evil staple. Instead of Brute Strength, because Brute Strength is pretty nice in Overhaul because it can get you to get rid of your face-down foundations and turn them into damage, and it's going to be keeping you out of deadlock. Instead of Brute Strength, we've opted for the Defensive Foundation Mastermind's Apprentice. And this can also, Overhaul doesn't have a damage problem, right? He doesn't necessarily need Brute Strength to pump the damage since he's giving everything 2 damage himself. But Mastermind's Apprentice can also be used on offense to give everything +1 speed, which Overhaul has a speed problem, or he can give everything -2 speed on defense. So I very much agree with Grant's decision here to switch Brute Strength for Mastermind's Apprentice. But what I wanted to point out was him running Loving Father because it works really well with Nebulous Stare. Nebulous Stare says you can take an attack in your discard pile that shares only 1 symbol with your character, take it to the top of your discard pile. Of course, Nebulous Stare only shares 1 symbol with Overhaul because it's a Air, All, and Evil, so it only shares the Evil symbol with Overhaul. So if you use Nebulous Stare and you take a Nebulous Stare to the top of your discard pile, then Loving Father says if the top of your discard pile is the same as this attack, you can remove it and pull it into your hand. So very, very neat combo there to grab a extra throw attack. And now, with Overhaul's extra 2 damage, it's an 8 damage throw, and you're going to play it twice if you have a Loving Father out. Other than that, there's not too much that I see crazy here. It's very much your typical Overhaul list. We've got our Tongue Whips and Vile Seizings and Triggers. I feel like these are just absolute evil staples at this point. We've got our Barrier Shield. Successful results is pretty interesting, but it makes sense since we are running quite a bit of throws. We should have quite a bit of momentum, and then we can be re-readying this foundation. So that is going to do it for the UK RLE. This has been a ton of fun jumping through these lists and picking one thing out to talk about. And again, another congratulations to Luke for taking down the entire event. I will be back tomorrow with the results of my Spike and Vash deck list competition, and believe me, you do not want to miss it.